Tape's going. Give me 10 seconds to air, please.
You got it.
Okay. Is that door open?
Yeah, there's people talking there.
Is it open? George, is the door open to the outside?
Check the door on the outside.
Could somebody go around and close the door behind us? Is that door closed, George? It seems to be open.
He may have thought you meant that door.
10 seconds.
Yeah, what about the door out here?
They'll go around.
5 seconds. The door will be closed.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm really glad you could get here for a program to air on the October 12th, my magic day. And just at the opportune time where this movie's coming out, we got to let them know about. I'm so glad to see you, Bob. Welcome very much. It's so good to talk to you.
Good to see a partner in our paradigm shifting
yes,
again.
And all that sort of thing. And welcome very much to conversation. Guest is Bob Dobbs, who's no stranger to conversation. He's been a guest many times. We go way back. He's a brilliant student. He bills himself as a paramedia ecologist, and he studied the media, and he understands the media, the implications of media in terms of larger understandings of the human evolution, of the human condition, in a very informed way. And Bob, welcome very, very much to Conversations. On this program, October 5th, it's due to air on October 12th of 2006.
That's a great honor, being on October 12th.
It is a big day. We need not go into all of that, but it is, for me, a day that is of great significance. I have a feeling it might become like a year one or a New Year's Day and so forth. But anyway, Bob, talk to us a little bit about your background. We've got a great deal we're going to deal with. We have an article by Marshall McLuhan, who you were a great student of, in terms of understanding economics and so forth, and some of the economics of Lewis Kelso, that sort of thing. But share your own background, please, a little bit briefly. You've done it before, but do that again to sort of kick it off here, okay?
Yeah, well, Harold, I'm here to present your request for an intellectual who's a visionary. You were complaining regularly on your show that there aren't any in the intellectual world. I've studied your shows and decided I've met the requirements.
Very good.
And part of the reason is my background. And I was born in Paris in 1922. I'm 84 years old.
Boy, you sure carry it well, young man.
Yeah, it's either the genes plus my wife's health knowledge and other factors like the D cell. But that's
Carolyn is really a great person. I hope you realize how fortunate you are to have Carolyn Dean as your better half.
My health shows that.
Oh,
shows the appreciation.
Okay. Now, enough of that.
Yes.
Carolyn, thank you.
So anyways, I worked in intelligence agencies on a global level since World War II, since 1944. I met Kissinger at the Normandy massacre when he was over there picking up Nazis for Project Paperclip. He was a young soldier, picked up anyways, he was brought over by Fritz Kramer, who became the main mentor to Kissinger and many people in the 50s and 60s in the Pentagon.
And I have a thing you understood. Your dad was involved with the old Fundy people in European intelligence, private intelligence very often and so forth, right?
My family goes back 300 years. We were butlers for the wealthiest people in Europe. And the
old money.
Old money, and the technical term is Fondi, F-O-N-D-I. It's Italian for fund, and we talk about trust fund babies today. Well, the funds go back to in families such as the Turner-Taxis family, Gloria and TNT, Gloria Turner-Taxis, who you can read about her in the June issue of Vanity Fair. She's been laying low since her husband died in 1990. She's a great fan of the present Pope and has private audiences with him, and she's an example of being married into these Fondi kind of families. Pynchon wrote about Turner-Taxis in the novel Thomas Pynchon, in the novel Crying of Lot 49, which is about the Turner-Taxis family dealing with a new technology 500 years ago, the postal system.
It's interesting. The families of Venice, does it go back to Venice when Venice was in its heyday? When did the current families that constitute old money in Europe, Fondi, begin to be nascent or be developed?
It began with Venice 1,000 years ago.
It was.
Yes.
1,000.
Yeah, that's when there was a Mediterranean power economy.
It was a huge empire. Yeah.
Right, and then the Venetian oligarchy, the Fondi, they sent Columbus out. And he discovered the Atlantic economy. He initiated. The Vikings were already exploring it, but with Columbus, so the Venetian Fondi had to move to a new Atlantic base. So they moved out of Venice and moved to Amsterdam, and you had that, you know, merchant revolution in Amsterdam in the 1500s, 1600s. Mercantilism, yeah. And then they moved to London. But you always had this connection between Amsterdam and...
But it began with Venice in a sense?
Yeah, because Venice was... Marco Polo comes out of Venice, and you have them at the crux between the Ottoman Empire and the floundering Holy Roman Empire set up by Charlemagne. And... you know, you had Webster Tarpley on.
I did. In fact, he is going to. Well, we're taping on Thursday. He's going to air tomorrow on my program. But we're the telescoping time here.
Webster Tarpley is a great historian on the Venetian Fondi. He did that with the LaRouche organization for many years. He worked with LaRouche.
Okay.
I don't know if he talks about that today, but he has written a lot on the Fondi, the Venetian Fondi.
He's got a steel trap mind. He really does. He's a really brilliant fellow.
Well, you end up like that if you're in the LaRouche organization because they deal with left hemisphere data. They're very good at gathering data all around the world as a news agency, and you've got to be on your toes with your left hemisphere, basically.
LaRouche is very brilliant.
Yeah,
he has a lot of detractors. He had to do time for something. I don't know if it was a fix or not, but he's a very articulate critic.
He's he's in my personal chart. He's one of my holy offices in terms of he is someone who tells people about stuff that I had personally experienced of. He's the historian of the Fondi. He's very good at it. That's where Webster Tarpley got his information from the information that the Executive Intelligence Review built up in the 70s under LaRouche's guidance.
Okay, that's historical. And then you're interested, so you were an intelligence agent,
yeah, so
and it had to do with, if I'm not mistaken, private money.
Yeah, well, the Fondi money.
The
Fondi money was put on the sidelines after World War I because America took over in the 20s. And then they had to fight the European factions in World War II. And so definitely after World War II, because money had been made public property via the welfare states, and the change in the situation after the crash in 1929, money became public property. So the private owners of money, like the Fondi, were on the sidelines. It wasn't until the American empire collapsed in the late 70s.
The American empire collapsed with Vietnam?
No, with the oil crisis in '73, then they lent all that money to the third world, and then the oil prices went up.
Gold standard?
Yeah, that was in '71, the dollar exchange. But the thing is, by the late '70s, the third world countries could not pay back the loans. So then Paul Volcker raised the interest rates up to 20%. And that caused that great depression period from '79 to '82. All right? Then...
Well, that's when Ford was president? Or
no, Reagan. Reagan was president from '81 till '89. We're talking at the end of the Carter period, the crisis with the Iran, okay, the hostage crisis is in '79.
And the oil thing.
And the oil thing. And then you had the high interest rates, and all the American empire through the aid development banks lent out money all over the world. The Fondi never lend money. They always invest. So how come we had a recovery?
What's the difference between lending money to people who are investor-grade people and what you said?
Investors are people who do not lend. They support the thing. Lending, you let the guy run his own course. An investor runs the situation, has a bit of control over it. And also you pick and choose where you're going to invest. Well, you know, what happened to Third World? You lent money, and the dictators just stole the money and sent it back to Switzerland.
A lot of it got back to Switzerland.
Yeah, flight capital, hot money. So the Fondi would never let that happen. But they didn't have the power to do that from the 40s, 50s, 60s into 70s. But where did the Reagan recovery come from? Began with Prince Charles. When the Fondi started to move into banking and their stable resources were used from '83 on, because they're the only ones that had any money, because they had never lent it out and lost it in the computerized economy of the 70s that led the crisis for the American empire.
How had it been stashed? In what form?
Gold, credit, and
invested
in certain strong companies, but they had to shift into new companies. So they invested...
They had a new economy and technology emerging.
They invested heavily in the digital economy,
Okay.
which began with Apple, the famous New Year's Day commercial in
What's the
1984.
difference between the fondi, as it were, that's European-based and so forth, and American capital owners and investors and so forth? Or where does the distinction and how do we fit that together?
American empire.
It's the Bilderbergers, were they
No,
talking?
it's like
okay.
this. The American empire is based on the people owning the money. It's public property. It's the welfare state. Okay, it's a
keep
guaranteed
talking.
income,
Yeah.
unemployment insurance. The private ownership of money
Yeah.
and golden credit was before that, in the teens and back into the 19th century and the 18th
Back
century.
to ancient Venice.
Right. So the welfare state exhausted itself under the speed up of computer conditions, which the McLuhan article.
Talk a little slower. The welfare state exhausted itself. Go ahead.
Under the speed up of electronic transfers of money in the computerized environment by the 70s.
Right, that's already coming in, yeah.
Yeah, that's
not just program trading and so forth, but
No.
all kinds of uses of cybernetic movement at instantaneous speed of electronic information.
It's very important we bring in the McLuhan article
That's
because
the
he
reason we
explains
want to
it.
talk
Yes,
to about it, yeah.
because here's the thing: money becomes a guaranteed medium. Everybody has, through welfare and unemployment insurance, a certain amount of access to paper money. But the economy by the 60s is not based on paper money; it's based on information.
Okay, emergingly so. Hasn't it
Information
always been? I mean,
No, money
they
was
had carrier pigeons to get an advantage to start up Reuters and stuff. you
right.
know?
But look, that's visual money,
Okay.
visible. We're talking about intangible money.
Okay.
Now, this is where the gap is. When you have an electronic environment,
As we have.
and we're quoting this article here. I don't know. We don't need to show it up, but I'll just
we
say.
can't show it. It's in great
Yeah.
detail, yeah.
It's a New York Times op-ed, September 21st, 1974,
74.
page 74.
That was when you had whip inflation now with Mr. Ford as our president.
Yeah, that's a month after Nixon has resigned.
All right, yeah.
Had to leave.
Uh-huh.
So September 21st, 1974, page L29. Look it up on the New York Times file. This is an op-ed by Marshall McLuhan
Right.
called "A Media Approach to Inflation."
Yeah, this is what you read to me over the phone
Yeah.
the other day and had great interpretation of it involving all kinds of understanding of media and the
It
importance of
explains
media.
why
yeah.
today upstate New York State has nothing. It leads to the
They have a lot of
outsourcing.
prisons. They have a lot of prisons, yeah.
Which McLuhan predicted. That's the only way to go.
He predicted that,
Yeah,
yeah.
here's the main point,
Yeah.
is that when you have a computerized global economy with satellites and automation and TV and all the cable TV in the 70s, all that rapid implosion of information, which leads to an instantaneous and simultaneous environment.
Okay,
Instantaneous and simultaneous
If
for
I-
everybody in the planet.
If I understand, you measure against 200,000 years of human experiences all happening within an eye blink, but there was a time when that had to be developed. So we had the telegraph, and then we had the railroads, and we had that kind. So it built up, and it reached a certain crescendo. And it may be that we're now, have we crossed a line into a whole new paradigm in terms of that instantaneous, simultaneous, and so forth? It was built up, and we're still progressing with that as we move into the future now.
There's two
When
shifts.
did the break point come? Can it be narrowed down to a certain period of time, months or dates
Yes.
or something like
There's
that?
two shift points,
Uh-huh.
the 70s and the year 2000. So we're going to get to 2000
All right.
and explain why Bush is the way he is. But he is the way he
That'd
is.
be good news for a lot of people to
Right,
understand. yeah.
right. But the period before that, what we call the Information Society, the Post-Industrial Society, where did that come from? It came from the technologies we invented. And the nature of effects of those environments was that they led for information processing
Right.
to an instantaneous and simultaneous environment.
Well, it required, I remember, you know, you had the Telstar, and there was the cable, and it was growing, right?
And
it's
shrinking.
coming. And shrinking the world into what
Yeah.
McLuhan called a global village.
You know,
right?
into a global membrane.
A membrane.
One spot. This is where the keyboard,
Yeah.
the Federal Reserve, or the Federal Reserve
1913.
Chairman, no, the Federal Reserve Chairman,
Yeah.
Alan Greenspan,
Yeah.
and Paul Volcker before them, they're the person at the switchboard
To set interest rates.
to set interest rates, which controls the global economy.
Yeah, because we have a monetarist kind of view of economic
Right, right.
theory, Friedman and so
Yeah.
forth. Yeah.
So McLuhan proposes in this thing that you had previously rationalist theories of economic explanations of
Mr.
inflation.
Keynes, you know?
You had Keynes,
Uh-huh.
which said apply money at the right place and right time to
On
deal
the
with
demand
inflation.
side particularly, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
In dealing with the problem of inflation.
Right.
And then you had the traditional Marxist view, which just said do more production to counter inflation. McLuhan said those two paradigms were based on equilibrium economics, balance of supply and demand. However, when you have an instantaneous and simultaneous environment, which means perpetual change and rapid change, which creates little intervals, which you can invest in and these intervals get faster and faster, there's called the futures market.
Futures market. Well, there's always been a futures market.
Right, but it got accelerated.
Tulips.
It got accelerated with the instantaneous environment.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's all growing. It has an evolutionary context, but it's also revolutionary at a certain point. Like evolution, you have quantitative change, and then there's a qualitative change. Something new emerges. Has that occurred? In your view?
There's been 1,000 of those. You named 4. There's been 1,000 of those over the last 50 years. 1,000 changes.
Well, no, those are evolutionary.
These are evolutionary.
Quantitative changes within a process is coming out of historical. But then there becomes an evolution, and anyway, you get a change. You get quantitative, and then there's punctuated equilibrium, a new species.
Right.
A new system
and so
that
the
is
first
qualitatively,
qualitatively
different.
First species is 1970s. Okay? We can even take your date, October 12th, 1970.
October 12th, 1970 is a
That's the reason.
major
We're going to go to the next species in 2000. But the first species is what McLuhan is describing. And it leads to a condition of disequilibrium economics. Disequilibrium means that there is constant pulsating change in dealing with the instantaneous and simultaneous factor. And environment. It requires a perceptual shift to see how this works. And what it leads to, when everybody sees the pattern of diversity of changes all over the place due to the instantaneity, because everybody can see a lot in that situation, then the average citizen gets possessed with this interval, this gap, and a gambling mania takes over to invest in the effect of a change and when it materializes.
Well, that also could be a gap in the perceived, let's say, just for want of another term, virtual reality or virtual modeling or something of that sort, about a qualitative transformation at a design level of capability between what exists and the capability, with staggering new dimensions of what that capability is in terms of our collective, it's a qualitative change in between our capability and what we seem able to realize in what they call the real world.
And to translate. We can't translate it back into Keynesian or Marxist or any kind of equilibrium theories. We can only translate it into understanding the disequilibrium situation of an irrational process that cannot be measured quantitatively.
Chaos
this
theory?
Is, I'm explaining, chaos theory is the sociological and physics world adapting to the environmental effect of the instantaneous, simultaneous environment. But the point is, I'm explaining that effect in the 70s caused the collapse of the economy based on visual money and the collective ownership of money, because the simultaneity and the investing in increasingly small future intervals, which is basically a chaotic anarchistic environment, that led to global capital moving anywhere around the planet. Therefore, there was no way to control it in the bureaucratic sense of a welfare state. And that anarchy reaches its peak in the late 70s, and that's when the American empire, on terms of shared money in understandings, inside this chaotic, instantaneous, simultaneous environment, collapsed. No money from 79 to 82, just outrageous 20% interest rates. So the only people who had money based on solid golden credit and were not part of the chaos.
But we've gone off the gold standard.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
The point is they had money because they did not loan it. They invested. They just held it. Okay. They were brought back in the early 80s, and part of it was Prince Charles had to marry a respectable person to be offered as the PR person for the Global Fund.
Because the Global Fund had moved from Netherlands to England.
England, that's right.
And on to the United States?
No, not the United States. They stayed in England. It's basically the European oligarchy.
Okay.
I mean, the Rockefellers and Morgans, they had to deal with that. The Astors married in. A lot of the rich families, you know, the Henry James phenomenon of people, he wrote novels on it, American new rich would go and marry into European oligarchy. But that wasn't so much the trend in the 40s, 50s, 60s. But in the 80s, with the collapse of the American financial collectively owned system of equilibrium economy, the only people who had any possibility of contributing and creating a stability situation was the Fund. And so they came back in. If you remember, Turner Tax's wife, his new young wife, a relative of himself, was the head of the social scene in New York City in the 80s.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know
Gloria
the name. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know who that person. I would, I'm sure. Yeah,
look up the June issue of Vanity Fair, and where they have a retrieved article about her. Anyways, the point is, that was the role of Fond. So me, I'm in the middle of that oligarchy, because my father and my great-grandfather and all of us lived and worked for the Butler families in Europe, all right? So I was part of these networks. And this network I call the solar government, not the world government. Because the world government is the American empire.
It's meta to the world government?
It became in the late 90s known as echelon, which was the satellite surveillance of the whole world. Okay? It's now called echelon. But it was already implemented in the 60s. You see the movie Enemy of the State with Gene Hackman.
Yeah, they claim that's overdone in terms of the ability. But anyway, yeah,
well, it's not overdone.
It's a very nail-biter, yeah. With Will Smith, yeah.
But usually those movies have some aspect of me.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is I'm moving into a position of control based on what I know.
You're talking about yourself personally.
Now I'm talking about myself personally because I'm the only one who knows who these people are, where they came from, why they're in positions of power now, why they do what they do.
And you understand well the mix between technological extension of our consciousness and those feedback mechanisms like James Joyce talked about in Finnegan's Wake.
So the dot-com world that the European fund invested in collapsed. Okay, that's the second thing.
That's about 2000.
Yeah, so the Fondi kind of got in the game for 15 to 20 years, and then they're nowhere. So we're left with this situation since 2000 of a post-information environment.
Okay, wait a minute. We had a industrial revolution, 1776, with a steam engine that came, and then we had a post-industrial revolution. That's information-based.
Right.
Now we have a post-industrial revolution, or where are we now in terms of this evolving? I'm still not sure if we've made a qualitative transformation or a recognition of the qualitative transformation that might be dawning and roiling these systems that we've inherited out of history, why there's so much angst and upset in the world today as we talk on October 6th of...
October 5th.
5th, excuse me, of 2006.
With world demonstrations, 220 cities demonstrating today.
Right, all right, that kind of thing.
That kind of thing. Yeah. Trying to communicate through the matrix, through the information
the Matrix,
environment.
Another movie to mention, yeah.
But it's the information news network that they're trying to get coverage and express some citizens' response to all that and protest. But what happened is that we are now in what I call a para-information environment.
That's right, you're a paramedia psychologist. Para is above, like parapsychology.
No, para is beside, behind, below, above, beside, and inside. It's all directions.
Oh, para?
Yeah,
parapsychology?
Yeah. Well, that's another dimension. That's
another dimension.
It's like parallel.
Or a parallel, yeah.
But think
you
of it
also
as
have a term meta. You have meta. It's not meta-psychology.
No,
it's
it's ecology, not psychology.
Yeah.
But it's para. Think of it as an all sides, like a cubist painting.
It's comprehensive.
It's comprehensive, yes, as an environment.
Yeah, right.
So we can make it simple and say a post-media environment.
A post-media environment.
But to be more accurate, we're paramedia because these previous stages that you just outlined, the industrial and post-industrial, are still here as environments.
They
are,
at
least
very
as
much.
memes
and people,
old paradigms.
Well, there are memes, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
so they're floating around. But
meme being like a genetic thing, a cultural thing, like a genetic, we talk about genetics, and then there are cultural...
memetics, we'll call it.
Paradigms or memes that are built into the social fabric of the society and organization.
Caused by media. Yeah. Caused by the technology of communication. Media, I don't just mean television. Any medium of communication, from speech to bulldozers to shovels to
all
satellites.
Technology is media in a sense. It's all extensions of our consciousness into the environment, and there are very few creatures that are able to extend their consciousness into the environment, create situations other than what in a Eden-like sense is given, which is the lot of most all of the creatures.
Right.
So we're very unique along that line of evolution,
and our
of being able to build the world, make the world different.
Now our extensions turned on us in the post-industrial phase.
Turned, or they do have we shape our tools. Thereafter, our tools ape us. I think it was and shape us.
But as they got tinier and tinier over the last 30 years, we now feel superior to the mediascape. We, the citizens, are paramedia. We don't feel dominated like the radio generation was, or the print generation, or the TV generation, the boomer generation. They dealt with one-way media. We have interactive and multi-level.
Well, that's coming in now,
isn't it? That has been here for 10 years, and the kids can Palm Pilot and instant messages.
They're really good at it. They can make those cell phones work with their thumbs.
But the point is, that's what they do, but the effect of it on their psyche is that they're superior to media.
Well, that was what Mr. McLuhan said. He said the medium is the message.
Yes.
And it's
as an agent of social change.
As an agent of social change, far more important than anything that the content of what somebody's saying over the media is the existence of the media and its conditioning effects back on consciousness.
Right. Now,
that's a very important lesson.
In the paramedia world, the kids are not conditioned by media. Okay? We are not conditioned. That is a subliminal effect of paramedia, where we feel we're superior, we don't feel we're conditioned. That's why McLuhan doesn't make sense to people anymore, because to the younger kids, they don't feel conditioned, but they're conditioned into feeling that. But it's very hard to find out what that thing is, because it's a seamless web and invisible. And then you get to the post-information situation. So as a result of this, because I'm the only one who really understands what's going on.
You're the only one who understands what?
The reality we live in.
The reality
I'm saying that I'm more important.
You're the only human being or consciousness in the on the planet
who can
really understands and can articulate an understanding of crucial importance for everyone to understand in order to navigate to a new there was a book by my hero, Utopia or Oblivion by Buckminster Fuller, who I have great account for. You have account for that. But that's a very important kind of position that you feel you have in terms of the evolution of universal consciousness.
Yes, and because of that.
You should be president.
Well, that's what we're leading into.
We're going to get into that because that movie's coming out.
Yes, because
and the guy at the head,
but let me get into that. Yeah, I don't want to lead into that carefully. Yeah, let's throw away the punchline. The point is that it'll come up in 2 minutes.
So this is your announce on television?
Yeah, I'm announcing here now
that you may be a candidate for president of the world.
Yes, that's right. Now, here's the thing. I mean, The Matrix, there's articles written about how The Matrix was about me.
Right.
SpongeBob was written about me. You will see aspects of my life in those movies.
The Matrix was monitored on your life? Or
yes, and there was articles written on that.
Yeah,
Robert Guffey is the journalist who did that.
You got that chapter and verse. You got all the footnotes to demonstrate that.
That's right.
Well, that's not a small matter.
No, it isn't.
Now, what role are you in The Matrix? Who are you in The Matrix?
I'm all of them. I'm the architect. I'm Neo. I'm Trinity. I'm the agents, there was
some with M. There was somebody with M. In
Morpheus.
Yeah, Morpheus.
I had written an article about the Morpheus generation before the movie came out. That's where they got the term from. But without getting distracted on that, the point is, I mean, go to my website.
You've already made a pretty big claim.
Yeah, well, I'm going to back it up. Here it is. The point is that since technology, in quotes, has come alive.
Yeah. And when did that happen? When did that happen?
That happened starting in the 60s, what we call the digital technology. It is replaying our extensions. But I've explained this in other shows.
Yeah,
so you can go back and look at other shows, but I just want to move into this new point. As a result of me understanding this situation, the media mirrors me. And now we're coming into a crucial election period, supposedly, 2006 to 2008. People think this is very important. Mark Miller and these people say it's the most important election period because they're very paranoid about President Bush, and they think they're going to lead to
a lot of people in the world
very worried.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have an intervention. And so
wait, who is the we that's going to have the intervention? The people or what?
Consciousness. Which I'm an expression of. But here's the point: is that as I've said, that the media reflects me at key points in key movies, like the movie Enemy of the State in 1999.
How would you? Who would you identify with the movie? I mean, would you have been Will Smith?
I was Gene Hackman.
You were Gene Hackman. Oh, of course you would have been.
I was the solar government. He was the echelon guy.
He was an echelon. He'd been part of the government.
But here's the thing, Harold.
Langley and all
here's
that.
our punchline.
And you come from the intelligence.
Yeah, I come from the solar government.
So you know about how these guys work.
One could even accuse me of making these movies, but I'll leave that for the speculation. But try to explain this. Right now, when I'm announcing myself, out comes a movie next week. The day after your Magic Day, October 12th. Called Man of the Year.
Yeah, I know.
And we're going to play the trailers for this. And they are using my name and what I did in Toronto and a little bit in Los Angeles.
What did you do in Toronto?
I did a radio talk show.
Oh, you had radio. Talk about that because you were in association with Mr. McLuhan.
Yes, and
you bill yourself among others as an archivist of his work, and you know it very well. And you're the only person I know who can sit down and quote long parts out of Finnegan's Wake.
Right,
with all the right accents.
Bucky Fuller and Louis Kelso and McLuhan.
Louis Kelso
and the Green Book
Man. You're picking up a
Man.
little bit on Louis Kelso and economics is I'm interested in. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, right.
We have here a statement. We get a chance. McLuhan on Kelso.
Yeah, right.
But let's get to this trailer.
It was McLuhan who first pointed out Kelso might be relevant.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, he said that the year the book came out, 1968.
Because he's not understood by anybody in the traditional way of thinking, but he might be really relevant. You got it from what? What did it take?
This is McLuhan's 1968 book, War and the Peace in the Global Village.
I remember it. I've lost it, but the copy.
So he's talking about...
He said, I had a ball reading two-factor theory, I think.
No, here's what he says. He says, consistent with the drastic environmental changes from mechanical ritual to electronic romance is not only the reversal by which every civilian becomes a soldier once more, as in ancient Rome or on our own frontier, but many reversals besides. It is not only our educational system that cannot stand up to the new electronic speed of information movement. The stock exchanges of the world are just as helpless and will disappear under the impact of the computer in a few years.
Well, how many years? That's what Kurzweil says the same thing.
Here it is. The large cities of the world, this is 1968, the large cities of the world are so obsolete and irrelevant that they will suffer the fate of London Bridge, which is not fallen down, but is to be taken down and transferred to the private property of a Texan.
Is it Texas? I thought it was Nevada. Yeah.
Now, he says, now that we are in the post-industrial time and moving into a world of programmed environments, we are certain to become obsessed with the economic organizations
of the past
that lie immediately behind us.
Right.
Kelso and Heder spot this syndrome in economist Galbraith. He then quotes Galbraith in his obsolete statement that Kelso's making fun of.
Well, he didn't make fun. Yeah, he did. In the affluent society.
And he points out, we won't go into it, but this is in 1968.
Yeah, that was him giving a tip of the hat to a system that wasn't understood by hardly anybody.
And he quotes the book, The Two-Factor Theory, came out in '67, and McLuhan is writing this in late '67. He's on top of the new book instantly.
And he sees the importance of it from a media perspective. And you follow all this kind of thing, and that's all really very interesting. And it's also interesting you got this thing, and you're right, I would like to set it up, Enemy of the State and that kind of Matrix and these kind of movies. Movies are very important. It's multimedia.
They're the news of the day. It's the documentary
things.
Of the Android meme or the fact
the Android meme. Say that. Android meme
is the programmed environment.
Programmed environment. Well, Kurzweil, who we played a little while ago, and he's a brilliant fellow, and he wrote The Age of Spiritual Machines. I did a program with him, and he said that in 1999 I was talking, and he said that he had two things. He said they're going to be able to take and he tracked. He's an interesting guy. There's a lot of, I'm just looking at this guy. They're interesting guys, and he had a thing where from 1988, he had written a book in 1988, The Age of Intelligent Machines, and he wrote Age of Spiritual Machines, and he's still doing, but he tracked from 1988, he projected Big Blue and so forth. He projected computing, algorithms, and Moore's Law and that kind of thing. And he said he predicted within a couple of months when the chess champion would be defeated by a computer system. And within 10 years out, that's pretty good in being able to read the tea leaves of
But I listened to his interview, and what he says, he's only speaking in English. The problem with Ray is that he's talking in English. He has to speak English, but you will not understand the world or communicate the situation unless you begin with the complex patterns of Finnegan's Wake, which is made up of 60 languages, and not just verbal languages, but multimedia languages. The very things that Ray says happened in the 70s and 80s.
All right,
But I want to get distracted by that.
No, but I wanted to finish it, because he also said that it was going to be where they're at Google, and a lot of their effort, they're going to translate the languages, even poetically, of the world into one another simultaneously through a cyber thing. And the last thing he said,
old environments.
The things he's working on was a system, and he predicted it would be coming about now. He predicted that the computer and not program trading and so forth, the computer, they're going to be such arbitrage possibilities, they're going to be able to be seen by the computer and so forth, that the economic decision-making process for planet Earth is going to be done within a computer system that no human brain can. We're going to translate.
We did that.
The economic decision is going to be made by computers.
We did that for 30 years. We already did that. That's what the solar government was. We programmed this.
No, they were aided. He was saying that it was going to surpass. Well, and then he's projecting.
We did that.
He's projecting now the singularity that the intelligence of computers are going to supersede human intelligence by about the singularity about, I think it's around
happened 30 years ago. His timing is off. Because we programmed, we in the Secret Council programmed the global economy.
We in the what?
The Secret Council of 10, the solar government, the Echelon Network, from the 60s on, programmed this situation. And I was on a radio show in Toronto describing this to the people who did
Your own radio show or somebody else? You had a radio show for how long in Toronto?
87.
Is it all archived?
Yes, it's on my website. You can hear them. They're replaying them on the radio station. I'm the only talk show that's so good that you get replay.
You're a radio talk show, not television.
No,
radio is a very different kind of thing than television.
Well, that's
how much television exposure have you had? Because you're setting up about how you're going to become Dobbs president and so forth in this film.
Back then I was describing how
There's a big difference between television and radio.
Back then we
explained.
I explained on my radio show to the incredulous audience how we programmed the environment. And I said that I would eventually become president of the United States.
You did say that.
Yes,
What year?
yes.
You got that dated?
Yeah,
you got
1988, 1989.
1988. I'm going to be president. This gentleman is going to be
president
president of the United States.
Yeah.
Not you said the world before. The
Well, the whole world, whatever you want to call it. The United States is the world.
Okay.
Okay? It's the Android meme environment. The point is that I don't even have to put this subliminal advertising out. We got Hollywood helping me. They're putting out a movie next.
That's what I want to tell you.
Tomorrow.
And if it's no less than Barry Levinson, who, ladies and gentlemen, this program is being taped on the 5th of October to be aired on the 12th of October, which is New Year's Day in my reckoning.
Yes.
And 1970 is going to be year one and the longer full expression of the human expression for reasons that Bob and I can go into and others, but we don't want to go into it here. That's a major day. October 12th, 1970 is a major day. This is October 12th. And tomorrow in theaters across the world, there's going to be showing this new film that Barry Levinson put together, and it's called Man of the Year. And one will remember that Barry Levinson is the one who put together with uncanny timing the movie Wag the Dog, which came out, I think, on the same day that Bill Clinton got into all of his trouble and started a war because he had a sexual thing going, and he had it, and it was so great, it was just perfect. And he's got a new movie that's coming out on, it's going to be the 13th, the day after this program airs. Everyone's encouraged to go out and get it. It's going to be a blockbuster.
And it's about
It's called Man of the Year, and it is, you're claiming, about you.
Yeah.
And the protagonist and the star of the film, who is Robin Williams, the great comedian, is his name is, I hate to tell you this, audience, against this thing we've been listening to here, this rant that we've been listening to here, the man's name is Tom Dobbs, right?
And he's a radio talk show host.
Did you set that up? No, he was a television radio
That's
talk.
right. He's
all the world
media.
and the difference between a television and a radio
Not
talk
anymore.
show.
Not
you
anymore.
know who they spot.
They
you know,
merged. They're the same thing.
Okay,
They're the
that's
same
a big,
thing.
Mr. McLuhan
Yeah,
used to make a big difference. Do you remember how much a
newspaper
difference?
is the same as a Palm Pilot today.
He made a big difference between television and radio.
Oh, that's
And
the
Tom
old days.
Dobbs,
Yeah,
no,
this is a similar.
well, I'm saying that the star of the movie, the character, is a talk
show.
Show. Television talk show, not radio, not Limbaugh, not a hot medium. It's a cool
But he's
medium.
a comedian.
And he's a comedian
And
who's
you look
making
at my
fun
chart,
of everything.
you'll see
You're a comedian.
I'm in
I'll vouch for
I'm in
that.
the comedic quadrant.
You are
Not
definitely
that I am
comedian.
limited to being a comedian.
No,
I'm
you
totally
aren't.
serious.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
You're
totally
serious. Of
serious. Yeah,
course you are.
Okay.
Of course
But the point is, let's play this. So
no, but that's it. And the guy's name is Bob, but he's
Bob Dobbs.
The most likely candidate for that in the public consciousness for a character that mimics reality would be like Jon Stewart,
yes.
who on the Comedy Channel that he runs and he says, I'm going to become and he becomes president.
Yeah.
It's a scenario that's closer than what be true.
But
all the young people, that's all they listen to anymore is the comedian.
But Harold, here's the important point. The movie does not end with Tom Dobbs becoming president.
You haven't seen the movie
No, I've
yet.
been
It's
told.
not out. Yeah,
well, I might have written it. You don't know about that. But let's not blow that. Let's create a little mystery and charisma here. The point is, why is it all about me? If I'm planning, I've only got...
Well, it's about a guy named, happens to be Dobbs. It isn't Channer.
Yeah, that's
it
right.
Isn't
it's about
Gell.
me. But the point is that in the movie, he becomes president, and then the movie has a whole period of time with him being president.
Uh-huh.
All right? That's the important part.
I saw in the trailer he was going to make
Bruce
Springsteen.
Finish. You're talking over. I don't mind the multi-level talking, but some people want the univocal.
Yeah, okay. Univocal.
Yeah, we could talk at the same time.
Univocal away.
Let me univocal
Univocal on.
Yeah. The point is that I, on my radio show, would explain what it was like running Secret Council 10 and the problems I had in the 80s and early 90s. This is apparently what Tom Dobbs is going to be doing in the movie, explaining the dilemma of being a president once he's president. That's very important.
Would you want to be president? Why would anybody want to be a president? I mean, it would be a horribly difficult kind of thing to do, trying to make that old system work when you need the vision.
Look at me. I've been president on the secret level for a long time. I became chairman of the Secret Council 10 in the late 80s and announced on my radio show.
I don't think all the world knows.
I didn't age. Oh. I think that I'd be competent enough to be president of the White House.
Just on the basis of your age? Based on my
understanding. Based on my understanding.
Wisdom.
My wisdom.
It gathers.
You know what what I would do if I was president? I'd have conversations like we're having at least 3 times a week. And that's all I do.
I think you should
that's
do
all
it 5
I do is
times
make
a
people
week.
think.
I think you should have it 5 times a week and you should call it conversations.
Well, they would after a couple of second term. The second term I'll do it 5 times a week.
I'm just suggesting I've been doing that for 35 years.
They'll be addicted,
and that kind of thing.
Well, you're the man for me to present this with, because you've been doing it. You're my John the Baptist. You're predicting. So let's play this thing.
We've got in the audience with this Mishigash, we got a trailer that's on the internet. You can go to it now, and it's doing this. So why don't we set that up in the control room now? We'll play the trailer. It's got some footage and so forth about this incredible coalition of events in the evolution of universal consciousness, where a guy named Tom Dobbs comes along at the same time that Bob Dobbs comes along, saying he's the pre-incarnation of the president. So it's a really strange thing, and we're happy. We're talking with Bob Dobbs, great guy, really bright mind, and really pleasure talking with him. So let's run it up and run this trailer about the film. It's going to air. It's going to be tomorrow in screens around the world, and it's called the Man of the Year. So let's run it up and run that now, then, please. Thank you.
Politicians are a lot like diapers. They should be changed frequently, and for the same reason.
Tom Dobbs was the biggest name in fake news.
More and more people are watching your show, Jon Stewart, Bill Maher, for news. How crazy is that?
Until the day he decided to stop going for laughs.
Maybe you should run for president.
And go for votes instead.
Tomorrow, I will officially announce my candidacy for president. Brace yourselves, people. It's now time for the campaign.
From Barry Levinson, the director of Rain Man, Wag the Dog, and Good Morning Vietnam.
He's in the debate?
You want to know my history, basically?
I did inhale because I thought, what the hell? It was lit.
It's in my hand, I'll inhale it.
When I was a young boy, I used to look at pictures of naked ladies.
I just farted a little while back there, if any of you wanted to ask.
He's not a puppet.
I support hydrogen cars.
It's weird, because you're backed by oil companies. And if you're representing special interest groups, maybe we should be like NASCAR. Little patches on the back, Enron. We take your money and run.
Smackdown.
He's not politically correct.
4 million illegal aliens are crossing the border with bedroom sets and night tables.
He's a one-man party.
You don't have to have an amendment against same-sex marriage. Anybody who's ever been married knows it's always the same sex.
He sounds different. Don't know what to do with him.
But what started as a joke...
Have you given any thought to what the makeup of your cabinet might be?
Well, I've always been a big fan of hardwoods like teak or mahogany.
...is about to end up in the Oval Office.
At 1:23 East Coast time, the free world will now be led by a comedian.
Whoops.
You're going to be president of the United States.
In terms of appointments, there are roughly 7,000 to 8,000 slots to be filled.
Just off the top of my head, I was thinking Bruce Springsteen as Secretary of State.
A joke.
Joke. Little one.
From Universal Pictures and Morgan Creek Productions.
Eleanor, we're going paintballing.
What?
Follow me, men.
Robin Williams.
I'm out of ammo.
The president's just been shot. He's dead. Let's go round them up.
Christopher Walken.
Hit him again.
And Laura Linney.
Did you vote for me?
No.
This fall.
The future is now.
It's definitely not.
I did not have sex with that woman.
Politics as usual.
I wanted to.
Man of the Year.
There was another one, I think. I'm not sure if there was another one.
You want to play the second one?
There's a second one. If you can set it up, you can get that other one going. It's really funny. What a funny theme, and what an courant theme, because you've got the hottest thing going. It's the young people are all into comedy and satire and mimicking and mocking.
Because they're paramedia. Because they don't believe in the information medium, so they accept fake news. They accept fake information.
Fake news. That's what Jon Stewart calls his program. It's fake news.
And
the comedy channel.
And now the interesting thing, looking at that.
If you get that set up in the thing, just start running it and we'll go. Okay, here we go. Okay, here's another clip about the movie.
Where's the volume?
Volume, we need volume, and it's about the movie Man of the Year. They're having a little trouble.
Party that can't distinguish between an amendment and a command. Decide to run because I'm tired of a Democratic Party that's like a chameleon in front of a mirror. Can't decide what it is. I decided to run because I'm tired of party politics, the games politicians play. Because party loyalties become more important than their actual
That's TomDobbs.com for that one.
Representing the people they serve, that responsibility. Not
the first one is
loyalty.
As I was saying, some of my colleagues in the Senate and I have...
It's very strange that you're asking us about, to be fuel efficient when you're backed by oil companies. How can you be in bed with the oil companies and say that? You're basically like a kosher pig farmer.
You're not on your talk show now, Mr. Dobbs.
No, but
I'm being continually interrupted.
Basically saying, if this is a debate, you should answer questions honestly. You should be accountable for who you are. The voters should know who you represent. If it's special interest groups, we should know that. You know, we'd be in the Senate with our suits on, and basically they should know if you're backed by something. It'd be like little patches, like they wear in NASCAR. You can say,
I can't understand. What are you saying from that program?
Heart attacks begin. We'll put the big one on the back, Enron.
On the air?
And run.
Oh, so we'll be... Okay.
There should be some sense of accountability. Really, don't you think?
Well, he's got us. We're on. The sound is not playing. This is confusion. This is media confusion. We got waving to this, and he says that the sound is on. And the sound is still playing, and we're not, and everything. So he'll know when we're coming back on. We're ready for our close-up, Mr. DeMille. Okay, apparently the sound was on while we were just taking. All right, it's another little mess up on Hollywood set, on a Hollywood sound set. Yeah, and we're talking all this deep stuff about deep philosophy.
Are we on?
And meanwhile, I guess we're on now. I presume we're back.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
So I wanted to say...
What a brilliant movie. Mr.
Levinson.
Levinson is brilliant. Wag the Dog was one of the best movies ever.
The Diner.
And it also, yeah, but particularly on this political thing, and it's so au courant because television, it's all about conflicting narratives and television as we stream to the internet. Everything's being streamed to the internet, so the theme couldn't be more timely, it seems to me.
Not only has it my name and what I've been doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. How did you get them to use your name? What did you have to do? Did you have to pay or something?
Well, I run a lot of that area.
Yeah.
I do a lot. I have a lot of influence in different areas.
I know.
Behind the scenes.
You do get around.
Read the new book, Super Mob, about
Supermob.
Sidney Korshak, the man who worked in the interval between the respected businessman and the mafia. Sidney Korshak by Gus Russo just came out. Very important book.
Okay.
I'm in that level. I'm in the Sidney Korshak role between the underworld and the overworld.
The underworld and the overworld. The political world and the normal world?
The paramedia worlds. All the worlds. But let me say that not only is it about my name, my ideas about the present situation, the second paradigm shift, we're moving into a post-information media environment.
Okay, now my idea is, for whatever it's worth, is that we are moving collectively into a post-scarcity ontologic reality.
Right.
And that we crossed the line where there were more haves and have-nots in the year 1970. Mr. Fuller felt the same thing in terms of capability. That's your electronic stuff in a way. I think it's right down to October 12th, 1970, when we crossed the 50% mark, and it could be looked at. But this is something, the idea of a qualitative change is not something that we ever hear in terms of the news or in terms of the political thing. It's all about reifying the old established system that has been outdated by the evolution of the zeitgeist and changes. You're seeing that media, and that's very important, but it's also part of a larger qualitative transformation, maybe heralded in terms of the evolution of universal consciousness itself. We're coming to a time where we can destroy the whole species, or we can create a situation where there can be an unleashing of the human
cut the univocal, we got it.
That we may be of a time of like speciating,
yes.
coming to a new relationship to the cosmos, which is transcendent to what we ever hear by our political leaders, and it calls for an alternate way of operating, which I don't think is going to be centered on the office of the President of the United States. It's going to be within a media context.
A media context. But the media and the President have merged.
It's probably going to be stationed or based within what is loosely termed the public access realm, which is not connected to the corporate structure so much.
You get your univocal statement you just made for the last 3 minutes. You get into every show. I recognize your role in getting that unknown univocal statement
only
in
when I
every
get a
show.
chance. If I get a chance,
but you do get a chance.
That's because nobody else is doing it.
That's
Except I'm happy to hear you say you think we're at a moment of qualitative transformation, speciation, coming into a new relation, liberation, not just changing.
Post-scarcity. Okay, let me.
Post-scarcity is one important.
The post-scarcity fact begins with the information environment of the 50s, 60s, 70s. Post-scarcity in terms of information, not cornflakes, but information. So Fuller was looking at a post-scarcity situation for everybody in terms of cornflakes and food and abundance and information. We have the post-scarcity. The world is looking for post-scarcity in terms of food on their table.
No,
now, the thing
among other things.
Among other
That's
things.
Satisfied. When you got women who can't decide which kid to let die because of starvation, and we have the capability of providing the food, which we didn't have in the past, there's something wrong with the capability and the ability of us to do what we're capable of.
What gets in the way, what gets in the way is the disequilibrium environment.
Okay.
That got in the way, and that's the disservice of the post-scarcity information environment. That's a disservice.
Well, it's a gap between capability, which has been
Are you going to give me only 2 minutes to finish the next thing?
I've watched the clock.
We got 10 minutes?
A gap between the capability, which is post-scarcity, and the reality and the institutions all formulated within scarcity.
See the gap? You're talking a gap.
Of course. And which is what the normal reality is.
Yes,
And there is the need for an alternative. And the context where that can be brought up must be within a meta-context to the institutions that exist that have to be transformed. And I think it'll be within a media televised kind of use of the internet.
It will not be in
Okay, where is the responsibility? It's not going to come from the president.
Paradigm shift.
It's not going to come from the president of the United States or people in that old system.
That's right.
All right.
But
it's going to come with somebody within the
the
media, like maybe a Dobbs.
Yeah, that's right. Behind
you should be
the scenes.
on a talk show.
It's going to come in the areas of the world that no one is looking at.
Right, like public access television.
No, that's the information environment. It won't happen in public access. All information environments, alternative and mainstream, are obsolete in the paramedia world.
In the paramedia world.
Post-information situation.
Okay.
And so we have a president. The big shift is 2000. Okay? And the big ritual in the information society is the American election every 4 years. That was canceled in 2000.
It was.
It was canceled. And a committee said, this guy's going to be president because his name was Bush. Bush is more important than the word Gore. Okay? Because Bush represents the information jungle. You're lost in the bush is a line from Finnegan's Wake.
It is, yeah.
But that is the image of being in the bush. He had the right name. So his image becomes the center of the Android meme. The merging...
The Android meme, explain what you mean by that.
The merger of the economy...
A meme is like a cultural thing?
No, we don't explain that. The merger of the economy and the White House is the Android meme. That's the information society.
You call that? I don't think that.
Now, here's the point. That disappears in 2000.
Okay.
We're in a post-information society. Not only did President Bush have the right name, he also refused to read the newspapers, follow TV, refused to finish his sentences, refused to be an information generator. He was off the grid because we were in that point of a Paleolithic return. A return to Paleolithic cavemen.
Stone Age.
Stone Age.
Well, I don't understand.
Real stone.
Flesh that out. What do you mean? What do you mean?
I'm trying to think of the most primitive, violent images we have in history.
You can go back 200 to 600 million years. We're all a sponge.
Right. That's the Android meme. SpongeBob was about me as the Android meme.
SpongeBob. I mean literally in the evolution of fauna 600 million years ago.
Yeah, it's a sponge.
All fauna was a
sponge.
sponge.
When you get to the mammalian, we think of the cavemen beating each other over the head.
45 million years ago.
What do we got, 5 minutes?
We got 7.
Oh, 7, that's good. So we got cavemen beating each other over the head. So what is another example of the blowing up of the information environment or the post-information environment? September 11th, 9/11. What happens? You have this incredible solar security around the United States, the Pentagon, New York City. But some caveman walked in and knocked it out.
Oh, that's
the myth.
Yeah, but except a lot of the 9/11 truth people don't think it was a caveman. It was
I don't want to go
orchestrated by the government in
I have
control.
a better theory than that.
That's pretty
and
radical.
I get it from Baudrillard. When you have
from where?
Jean Baudrillard, in his book Spirit of Terrorism, explains that when the world for 45 minutes through the internet and television was looking at the burning symbols of the American empire, when you have that digital Android meme implosion looking at the buildings, you don't need bombs, extra bombs to blow up the building. All you need is that human attention. And the buildings, iconic image, are alive. They felt humiliated and they suicided themselves.
Who suicided?
The buildings. They collapsed on themselves from the attention of the global public meme.
That's an
Very
thing.
interesting. I do a whole show on this, but we want to get into that.
Yeah,
I explain.
it's interesting.
And so the American hardware mentality, the American hardware, Jean Baudrillard spells this out in his book, The Spirit of Terrorism. And he's a great student of McLuhan, and he understands that the electronic environment and digital environment is alive. And when human beings look at one thing for 45 minutes, and the majority wish the thing to collapse, the buildings will be humiliated, and matter will be affected, and they will collapse.
Interesting thesis.
But when you take American hardware mentality, it has to imagine, it can't figure out this software effect, so it has to think of extra bombs, planes, laser beams, and that's the 911 BS movement. Funded by Adnan Khashoggi. This whole movement is funded by Adnan Khashoggi by the Saudis to cover up about their involvement, okay? But it all was superseded by the global attention on the buildings.
That's an interesting
Very interesting thing.
You don't put much stock in the 9/11 Truth movement where they say the United States government was involved in bringing the buildings down.
Involved.
You don't give any credence to that at all.
There was a committee that did it.
I'm
not going to go into it right now.
These are human beings.
Yeah, human beings.
Okay, and there was a committee who did it, and it was enlightened by Mr. Bin Laden.
I'm running for president.
Who was it?
When I'm president, I'll release that information. Okay.
Oh, you're running for president.
Yes, I'm running for president.
You think it would be?
Now, here's the point, though. It's a post-information presidency. The Bush image, we don't know if it will be strong enough in 2008, 2009. It may not be because we'll be a new situation. We got a lot of changes coming up.
Yeah, changes are coming exponentially. It's going L-shaped now.
Every 22 seconds it'll change. It's not 18 months. It's every 22 seconds.
It's like the quickening of a pregnancy.
Right. It's
and the pregnancy leads to something. What's it leading to?
It's the Hopi. It's the
What's
biblical,
it leading
it's the Islamics, it's Chinese,
what is it
it's the
leading
Hindu.
to? What is it leading to? Are you
cold fusion.
Cold fusion would be a means of overcoming
the
lack of
paralysis.
Energy.
Yes.
Because the energy thing that
so
could be done. But if you had good design of institutions where you could be like political and economic, the economic system is malinformed. It's not informed in terms of what our if you had a system where the capability could really be released by an appropriate economic theory basis and the situation, you would release capital formation to allow us to do what we're capable of doing, which gets over what your Pond's cold fusion is going to do, is providing, it's getting over. That's getting over scarcity.
The great thing about
the idea of overcoming scarcity between our capability and the reality is the gap. And that's where responsibility resides. And it's not going to be coming from the White House or from the systems of organization.
No, it's coming from China.
It's going to be coming from
China.
It's going to be coming from
China.
Well, with all due respect, I think it's going to be coming from a zeitgeist of an informed humanity.
You're not letting me fill in. The Bush White House, the great thing about the Bush White House...
We only have 2 minutes left. You better get it in quick. Quick.
The Bush
Go to
White House.
Haiku. It's got to be haiku.
The Bush White House is going to create a quagmire in the Middle East.
They have.
It's going to get worse. The Saudis aren't going to get the oil out. China's going to need the oil. When China can't get that oil, they have a mentality where they're going to look into the alternative. They're going to put a lottery, take bids. 9 different energy systems will bid. Cold fusion, Pons and Fleischmann will win.
And then
the Mayan calendar ends in 2012. There's more to say about this, but the Mayan calendar, the Mayans didn't understand why there was a change in 2012. They got the right date, but the real change is...
What's the Mayan calendar?
Mayan calendar, don't worry about it.
Mayan, the Mayan from Mesoamerica.
So in 2012, the Chinese will start implementing cold fusion because they will have to, just like the British. They had coal, but they didn't use it until their trees ran out. Chinese ain't putting in cold fusion until the oil runs out, due to the great work of Bush in clogging up the Middle East.
But with all due respect, when you use the metaphor of cold fusion, you're talking about overcoming scarcity.
That's right. On the energy level.
We've overcome scarcity at
on the information level, design level.
On the design level.
Yes.
We've overcome that since about 1970.
Yes.
You agree on that?
Yeah,
you
McLuhan writes
That's a major premise.
McLuhan wrote on that.
If that is the case, if we've overcome a design ineptitude we had prior to that, and now the situation has changed, why is that not on the lips of every politician or every thoughtful person or every intellectual?
Because they have to
at
represent
a design
old
level
memes in this transitional period. You know that people do not want to go through immediate, rapid change. It's too much for them.
I'm not talking about...
We've had paralyzed realize
I know, but I'm not
relaxation
talking about,
and
I'm
nostalgia
not talking about,
till we got to this point. Nostalgia doesn't work anymore.
I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about intellectuals.
Oh,
Why
them
are
too.
intellectuals?
They're literate
You're
people.
an intellectual.
No, they're
you
literate.
recognize.
Literate people have no clue about what's
You're not
going on in the
literate.
No, I'm multimedia.
All right, you're multimedia, but a lot of the people are.
New York Review of Books. Barbara Epstein got cancer, died. All those people died because they can't have.
No, what I'm
they're not
asking
alive
you,
like
if
me.
this event has taken place in the evolution of the zeitgeist in
I'm talking, this is
1970, why are people not saying that, and why is that not letters 20 feet high on every think tank in the world?
A money-based society will not pay for the
well, then we don't have,
of
it's economics. We need the new economics that can deal with allowing the design to happen.
Disequilibrium economics.
Yeah, so that's the gap.
It'll only be overcome by by post-scarcity energy form. Cold fusion.
Not if you, well, okay, I understand your premise and everything like that, but I do think the important thing is going to be on something like cable television, or is going to be a place that's going to...
No information. We're talking post-scarcity on the energy level.
No, but you're not energy level.
We've got post-scarcity information everywhere.
No.
We've got people communicating to billions.
Go see the movie. It's called Man of the Year. It's going to be in the theaters near you, on a screen near you. Everyone should see it, and we'll pick up some more of this.
He corrected it, and then it's not there. Paramedia. Why isn't it paramedia? He corrected it.
It's the media
it should be paramedia.
It should be, read it, everybody. Paramedia ecologist, not mere media college. It's a paramedia college. Big difference between paramedia and media.
It's been good having you on my show, Harold. Great talking to you. It's a
Good.
pleasure of yours to have Harold here to give us perceptions.
All right.